All right, so Mixolydian. One thing, dominant 7 chord, it's always at Mixolydian. But the other most common thing that will really sparkle Mixolydian is when you have 2 major chords a whole step apart in a progression. And when I was saying lowrider, that happens in lowrider, like... So then, like in reggae music, that kind of thing, you know?
Yes.
It's great sound. 2 major chords like that. Blues Traveler. I don't know if you heard Blues Traveler. That kind of thing. Fire on the Mountain, Grateful Dead. Fire on the Mountain. You know, Sublime. We took a trip to Garden Grove. Blah, 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 Mixolydian. That's the melody of Mixolydian. You know, it's that sound. It's a good sound. It's like my favorite sound. Like when you hear those notes, it's like kind of got a bluesiness, but also that major bluesy sound to it. So if I have a G major and an A major, even if I start with G major and go up to A major, or have A major and go down to G major, it's the higher major chords Mixolydian scale. Okay. Always. So if I have the... It's just the higher one of those 2 major chords is that one, okay. That chord's Mixolydian. Those are the two most common Mixolydian situations. The other thing that you can do with Mixolydian is if you have, even if you're talking about a blues, blues in A, A7, D9 or D7, and E9, E7. You know, it's actually A Mixolydian, D Mixolydian, E Mixolydian, D Mixolydian, A Mixolydian. But no one really does that too much. But those are the right notes for each of the chords of the blues there. So if you get little spatterings, which we've talked about before with the arpeggios, those arpeggios come from Mixolydian. So that's another approach is actually knowing Mixolydian in different positions well enough to play over each of those changes. But that's going to be more of a jazz approach. But basically, anytime you have a dominant 7, it's that roots Mixolydian scale is the most correct. Okay. But we usually approach it pentatonic wise. Right. That's the sound that we hear the most. But I like, for instance, if I'm playing, an A7 kind of thing, A9, and if it's just vamping on one chord, then, I would do some blues licks and some Mixolydian licks, and I usually hybrid them together. And there's a lot of different approaches for that. But one that I like that you can kind of do is think of it as the blues scale. Like that. Now that note right there on my pinky's not in Mixolydian, actually a half step higher from Mixolydian. So you could do that, or you could just go fast enough and blues it up, a little bend, but the blues notes right there. I wouldn't do it on the way down. I'd go, or, because that note is that note. But so you can go like this, up the blues scale, and hammer on that note from Mixolydian instead of that note, hammer up to that. That's just a nice little, anytime you have that. And I have a lot, I cover that in a lot of other lessons, but. So anytime time you're adding that in your pentatonic, you're really playing Mixolydian.
So the last time you were explaining how the minor pentatonic, once you add the Mixolydian to it, that it actually it makes it a little jazzier. And I wanted to know how to blend those two together to turn a straight blues song into more of a jazzier blues song.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, since you ordered your ShamWow, so I don't have my little. I gotta get one of these little things, but I haven't even seen Star Trek.
I got a new one, right?
Yeah, I heard it was good, but okay, so
that's really where I was heading, and you actually explained it after I asked, but you explained the right.
Yeah. So let's just talk about an A7 chord again. You know, like literally keep it simple, but practice some different elements over an A7 chord. So one is minor pentatonic blues, but then another is to add the major third to that, which there's so many ways to get licks out of it, but basically for now I would just say try and do this kind of thing. Well, really, let's just look at the box of the A, D, and G string. So even on the way down to that, I'm hammering up to it from the 5th fret, like. There's really nothing non-Mixolydian. I mean, that was really straight from the Mixolydian with a little passing tone right there.
To me, that's jazz, right? That's just straight.
Yeah, it's like a boogie kind of thing, you know? But that outlines the... So, if it's hard for you to think of... There's a lot of finger changing for the Mixolydian on the other strings. So you could even really survive by just thinking of the blues scale, but with that hammer on right there. And it will give you a cool sound, like... You know, let me do some of that slow. Down the blues scale. Could do that. See that?
Yes.
It's tasty. So there's some wrong notes in there if you're talking about Mixolydian. One is this one. Another one is just the same thing there. In Mixolydian, it's a half step higher. It's the major third, it's called. So this low major third here exists right here on the 4th fret. Instead of that. It's that. Right? So instead of that, then we start getting into finger changing to fit that Mixolydian scale, like that already sounds real major, you know, but you could go. So now we're talking about that again, and so another element would be that extended scale of the pentatonic and turning that into the Mixolydian blues kind of hybrid thing. That is what I use more than anything probably when I'm doing Mixolydian stuff. So